And we're live.
Hello, and welcome to the Modern Romantic Podcast, where we celebrate and inspire romanticism through passionate people doing incredible things. Hi, I'm Emily. Just kidding, I'm Trey. And I'm joined by my co host, Trey. And just kidding, Emily. Hi.
That wasn't confusing at all. Not at
No,
all.
not at all. Hey, look, I got to keep you on your toes, right?
Today would be a great day for an identity crisis. I guess
Yes.
I guess I'll just have one as a treat.
Me, I'm having a midlife crisis.
Oh no. I have a
uh,
great way to get your mind off that.
okay, I'm listening.
I brought Kaz to the chat today.
What? You brought her out of the chat into physical manifestation?
Yeah, it turns out she's real.
Oh, yes. No, for our audience at home, can you tell us who is Cause? Can you introduce our fantastic
Me?
guest?
Yes. So when we had episode 4, which was with Mark and Elva Rhinus, Leatherworkers, it's a duo that we met through Twitch, and we used to raid their channel at the end of our show when we were practicing to do live shows and doing test stuff. We asked them to be on our show, and they were the first strangers we asked to be on the show, and that was such a cool experience having them on, and also very nerve wracking. But we met Kaz through Mark and Elva Rennis because she was a fan of their show, and she came to our live stream because they were on, and then we have since adopted her, and now she's ours. Come at me, Mark and Elva. But also, no, it's so great. They have such a great community on Twitch. It's Rhinus Leatherworks for anybody who's wondering, and through that we met Kaz, who also does leatherworking. It's specifically something that is near and dear to my heart, which is horse armor in general, but horse armor because I love horses too. So anyway, that's the story. Today she is live on the show finally, 3 years later. Everybody, welcome Kaz to the show. Oop, there goes my mic.
Yay!
Hi guys. Hello. Thanks for
Hello.
having me.
Yay!
It's definitely a little weird from being on chat where I'm like, am I supposed to chat? Am I supposed to say something? I'm like, no, I'm here. Hi. Hello.
We
I
can hear your
exist.
voice.
It, let me just pinch myself from having that because I remember seeing just every now and again it'd be like cause, and then your name kept popping up in our chat and it'd be like guys, and every time it would appear it would just get more exciting and more exciting because you were engaging, you asked great questions,
Mm-hmm.
and we Emily and I would comment after just about every show, be like, we're so happy that she showed up, we're so happy that
Yeah.
she was here today.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I remember, I think it was like a year ago, maybe a little bit more. And he's like, hey, I want you on the show. And I'm like, no, I'm terrified. I'm like, let me just lurk in your chat, please.
So,
But
what convinced you?
um actually, Mark and Elva convinced me. Really, I should say, like when Emily re-brought this up, being like, "Hey, you want to be back on? You want to be on our show?" It's because I've actually been streaming, and Mark and Elva were the biggest push in that, where they were always like, after about the 2 year mark, they were like, okay, when are you streaming? When are we seeing your
Mm-hmm.
name? Like, we're seeing you make these things. They're like, let's actually see you, like, please. And I was like, no, I don't know if I'll be that great. Like, and they're like, no, you're gonna do it. You're gonna do it. And finally, I just downloaded Streamlabs and I was like, hi, I'm here. I don't know what I'm doing. And it's been chaos since then. And it's wonderful.
Go you.
Yes.
Yeah. And you have a little bit of a following now, and tell us how often you stream.
Oh, um, in the beginning, I streamed fairly often, and then I found my groove, which was like Friday nights, like Tuesday, Friday nights. Um, but then I had a lot more people like missing like 1 or 2 nights, and they were like, would you be willing to add a third night? So then I started doing Tuesday, Thursday, Fridays, or like sometime in the either Saturday or Sunday. And that was a pretty solid schedule until like a whole bunch of chaos started happening in my life. And then I unfortunately had to like, as of right now, take a step back for a quick second. But hopefully once I get all my ducks back in order, because one's trying to go down the river to the waterfall, once I'm able to get that duck and put him back in line, I should be able to hop back on that schedule, which for me would be the Tuesday, Thursday, and then something between Friday, Saturday. But the Tuesday, Thursdays are at night, about like 7, 8 o'clock, I'll probably start.
Okay. And what
Yep.
kind of things are you working on your channel?
So right now I have actually been working on a Tiamat armor, which for anyone who plays D&D, Tiamat is like the mother of dragons, but she's also chaos and destruction. So she's not really the if you're playing like for like good alliance, yeah, she's not the one you want to be coming back into the world. Um, but if you're like chaos and you want destruction, you're on the team of bringing her back. Because I believe her lore is like she's trapped somewhere in a pocket dimension in Avernus, and she has her cultists try to bring her back. But this all triggered when my husband was like, I wish I knew someone who is a dungeon master so that I can go from being the dungeon master for everyone to finally being a player and playing all these characters that like I have in my head, but I can't play them as a DM. And so I looked at him and I was like, well, I've played Dungeons and Dragons for at least 15 years at this point. I was like, cool. Give me a quick 30-minute rundown of how to be a dungeon master. I will make a campaign for you. And so yeah, I made a campaign for him, my brother-in-law, his girlfriend, I think, and our friend, his Marine friend, Miles, and we had a little group and we were playing for that till everyone's life got very chaotic. And we're like, we'll pause it. But during that time, I was working at the Renaissance Fair, and this wonderful cosplayer came in, and she came dressed as Tiamat in her humanoid form. And I was like, I love this dragon, like just in lore in itself. And now I'm seeing a cosplayer. I was like, I have to do something now. It just feels right. And so throughout my stream, since that, I've actually been making little pieces, which one of them is my stream got to see, if you don't mind me showing.
Yeah.
Is these two bracers. Ooh. And for the people that are listening, they are dragon bracers. So they look like scales, but even large scales, and they're 3-tiered. But on the leather itself, I've actually tooled in actual scales. And they're in her colors, which is black, red, white, green, and blue. And we kept the red to be in the middle because her main middle head is red, and then the other colors sprout from the other sides.
Okay. And for anybody listening who doesn't know what bracers are, they're the part of armor that goes on your forearm, right?
Yep. Sometimes people will confuse them as gauntlets, but gauntlets actually start from your wrist and cover your hand. The fancy term for a bracer is vambracer. Mm-hmm. I don't know what Old English, that means, but most of the time people just say bracers because it's a lot easier to say than vambracers. Because sometimes, yeah, I just call them vampires at that time.
Yeah,
a lot of times
vampires.
They're just vampires, and they're like, "What?" I was like, "These things." Oh, bracers. Yeah, that. But yeah, no, I got scolded by the Bohurt fighters, the full contact steel. Basically, they are knights, full armor, just whacking themselves with like shields and swords and axes and sometimes chairs. Um, yeah, oh yeah, yep.
What?
There's, yep. Um, during the fair, we have two group of bowhurt fighters that come and they'll fight each other, and it's basically like WWE, like martial art wrestling, but there's not really any wrestling because when you're in like a full suit of armor, you really lose a lot of mobility, and even when like you go to swing, it's there's a lot of force in that swing, but it looks very slow and it takes a lot of effort to actually like pick your arm up and chuck it. Um, but they have these little fun rounds that they call them, where they'll literally take those metal folding chairs as a as a weapon and just like bonk each other on the head, and it's great.
That's like no small thing.
No,
whole metal chair.
it's a whole metal chair, and it's like 5 on each side, so you have 10 metal chairs just flying around. Sometimes someone will chuck one because it's at that point it's everything's on the table. um and the weapons are actual like combat ready. They might be a little blunted, but they are real steel. They hurt. um but they're fun. Like we had one guy, he if anyone rides motorcycles, you can buy these braided hair extensions that you can stick on your helmet with magnets. One guy did that. He bought like a really big blonde one and braided it, put flowers in it, and he came in with a frying pan. I can't remember what he said, but it was like a spin on Rapunzel. I think it was like re-punk soul, and I was like, oh my goodness.
Oh.
Yeah.
He came in with a frying pan.
Yep.
When will my life begin? Let's not get DMCA, please.
Josh said,
sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Josh said, yes, the bowhurt guys are a bit nuts. I mean, I can get behind some HEMA style stuff, but folding chairs?
Folding chairs, yep. They're great.
So, is it BOHURT for anybody who wants to look this up?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to be clear. This is not something I've heard of before, but apparently Josh has, and you have. So,
no,
anybody who wants to look that up.
Yeah, they're cool. It's wild. Honestly, for if you're ever able to watch one of their shows, you're like, dang, that's violent. But in all reality, there's a lot of times where they'll just like kind of corner one guy and then they're just like tink, tink, tink with like their weapon. They're not really doing any damage, but it's kind of I believe you can correct me if I'm wrong. Is that there's like a point system where it's like for certain fights is like however many times you get hit, it's like after so many times, like you're done, you're out. So the guys don't really want to hurt the other people. But sometimes they'll go fisticuffs, especially the women warriors. Like this past weekend when I was vending at the Fenrir Viking Festival, we had them there. There was 2 female warriors, women warriors, and as soon as their fight started, they threw their weapons down and went fisticuffs and went ham. And a lot of the guys are like, yeah, when the women throw their weapons down, they're like, even we get scared. And I was like, yo, okay, let's go.
On the one hand, that is incredibly dope, but on the other hand, that terrifies me as an audience member because I'm expecting like, not that.
I'm not expecting that just in this conversation, and I'm still kind of reeling. Like, what is this thing? I've never heard of it. This sounds like my mind immediately went to like a fight on a hockey rink, only a totally different thing, and I kind of want to see it. So I'm gonna have to look it up. And
Yeah, it's
it's
awesome.
how
I
Josh,
think
how come he never told me this? How come I don't know about this?
Yeah, Archer, why come on, Josh, why haven't you told Emily about this? Gosh,
yeah, Josh,
gatekeeping?
you're
Man.
yeah, gatekeeping. Rude, Josh. Yeah, I think a lot of the Boherts are also part of SCA. Which
Okay.
is like another thing. I think Bohert in itself is now starting to become its own entity, like its own popular, while the full contact fighters used to be a part of SCA. Like that's how they were able to keep their groups going. But over, due to COVID and everybody was like inside, a lot of these like dying arts became popular.
Sure.
So it's like before COVID, I knew a lot of leather workers that were struggling to make ends meet. They're like, I can't I can't get anything. But now it's leather is like a high, I don't want to say a high commodity, but it's like a lot of people are seeking some type of leather object because either they're trying to get rid of their PVA stuff, or they've had something for so long but they're like, I don't really like that it's made out of plastics anymore. I want the leather. It's these old school arts, like true craftsmanship. I shouldn't say true craftsmanship because all crafts are true. um but like I would say really like old. Like for me, like resin is a new craft, like it's in its
Mhm.
baby stages,
Yeah.
while leather,
Mhm.
you've had it since honestly humans existed.
Forever. Yeah.
And so a lot of people have like turned going to like, I want something that's going to outlast me. And I was like, that's really cool. And HEMA got popular, which is really awesome because my little group I used to be a part of, it was like 6, 7 of us. And now within a year, we've like tripled in size.
So what is
Um,
HEMA? What is that?
so HEMA, it's like the Bohertz guys, but instead of full steel, it's like fencing, but a little bit more. So it's like you take like fencing and you just made it a tiny bit more violent. And instead of a rapier, you have a long sword.
Okay.
Hmm.
Um, but we have like a gambeson and we have the pants and the boots, and the same like fencing type of mask. But our swords don't have like the little wires to be like where, can tell like where
Oh,
your
right.
opponent. Yeah,
Hmm.
we don't have that. We just hit each other. And it's like I said, it's a bit more violent. But it's not as violent as the Bohurt guys where I've there's a lot more rules and regulations for HEMA
Okay.
versus the Bohurt guys are like, if I'm in a bad mood, I'm gonna wail on someone, and that's allowed.
Right. No holds
I've
barred.
Yeah, I've seen guys like literally coming out of like the because it's a ring, it's literally an octagon, of like horse fencing, horse
Okay.
gates that they make, and they all go and they fight in it. Um, and I've seen literally guys at the end of the fights, they'll pull their helmets off and their face is just bloody, like cracked open, like.
Wow.
And
Yikes.
so the funny part, I shouldn't say funny, at least for me, it's the funny part, is that if you took a hit so hard that it made you bleed, like that's an honor. Like you would walk out of that ring like super proud, like you did something awesome. And I was like, I've never been in like a situation where it's like getting injured is like a cool thing, but you know what? I dig it.
It in some respects it is that kind of badge of honor. I do want to go back because you talked about really getting into leather or more people getting back into leather, especially with the pandemic that hit. And I'm curious, because we're so behind at the time, like behind digital screens or in front of our phones, do you feel like those more tangible crafts or like making things was a way for people to connect and that's why they got more into leather? Or what's kind of your take on why the gravitation towards some sort of like material crafting.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% would agree that having a tangible craft, one, would help someone with like as we would say like cabin fever, because you were inside almost 24/7. And there's a lot of people where it's like they don't have a backyard because they're in an apartment or they're in some type of like complex condo where you have a harder time having like space to be in nature and have that space where that craft really helped you kind of like forget the time that you're stuck inside. But at the same time, with all these people coming in, and at least when I started leatherworking, I didn't feel like there was a lot of anything out there to help me become a better leather worker or really get me started into it. And then with the pandemic, all these really old leather workers were getting requests to be like, hey, how do you do this? How do you do that? And then they would hop online and then they would make videos and all this. And it would grow and then it become a community. And then instead of pitting each other against one another, it was like, oh, hey, you do this kind of beveling with this type of leather. That's really cool. I never thought of this. Oh, this lacing is due to this, but it's a lost art. And I'm actually going to teach you how to do this. It became a lot of bartering, and for like bartering for information. And it was super cool as where it's like, you could go into this space where you're like, hey, I'm new at leather. And everyone would be like, okay, cool. So when I started, this is what I did. And this is like kind of like how it affected me. And it really upsetted me because like it really didn't feel like I was going anywhere. But this is how I developed. So don't make these mistakes that I made. And you could just grow super fast. And if like you made a mistake, the community would like come back behind you and be like, that wasn't a mistake. You're learning. Like, that's so cool. You just kind of, it developed into that community where it's like, if you had a community outside, whether it was through your job or your actual community itself, you now suddenly had one online where you felt welcomed, you were welcomed, and you were encouraged to just grow and flourish. And if you like would say like, I'm thinking about this, everyone would rally behind you and be like, do it, do it. You only live once, do it.
Like how it
Which
should be.
yeah, which happened for me is that, I was in Rhinus's chat one day and I was like, I'm thinking about streaming. And, at that time he had about 50, 60 people in his chat. And every single person was like, Kaz, yes, do it. We would love to see you actually stream your work because your work's different than Rhinus's. And I think that's what a lot of people started realizing is that, leather wasn't just wallets and belts. You can make these crafts that like would ebb into your actual daily life of like fixing things and realizing it's like, oh, hey, it's like I have these pair of boots. Oh, wait, I now know how to fix that. And the longevity of like your items just got longer.
Yeah. Did your um I guess quest or love of leatherworking start with or before the Rhinuses that you met them, or was it like during or
Yeah, my love for leather, I would really say started started with my actual Renaissance journey, where because I used to live in Washington State, and I lived really really close to Midsummer's Renaissance Fair when it started. And when it first started, it was pretty much like I would almost say it was a fiber arts kind of farmers market, fleece market.
okay.
Because there is a lot of sheep there. Like there's a lot of alpaca sheep,
Okay.
Angora rabbits. I remember this lady. She's in like old peasant clothing that she like hand wove, and she has this huge Angora fluffy rabbit, and it's just sitting there, it's just eating something on her lap, like little food, and she's just slowly just pulling and I don't want to say weaving because it's not that, but the loom, the not the loom because loom something wheel. There we go. She was spinning it.
Okay.
Literally right off the rabbit. Rabbit was not upset. It almost seemed really happy. It was like it was like, oh, this extra fur is finally getting off of me. That she was just very gently just picking this fluff up and then just spinning it. And then
Wow.
when that bundle got done, she gave it to like, I don't know if it was her daughter or sister or somebody. They took that, then spun it, spun fur, and then they twisted it, and then they turned it into actual like yarn that you could knit, crochet with, whatever you wanted to do with it. And it was, they would sell it right then and there.
That's amazing.
It was incredible. And we had a lot of those. We had people carding fleece, whether it was like sheep or alpaca that they brought from their farm. There was someone that was like showing you actually how to shear a sheep. Um, and I remembered it starting as like something like that, and then it grew into what it is today. I think I was there for like 17, 18 years that I would go. And it was beautiful watching it outgrow that one space and it moved to another space. And from the time I left, it's actually outgrown that space and is now in a whole new space, just bigger. I'm like, that's so cool. But my leather journey started when I was just dinking around on YouTube and I came across, no, actually, it wasn't YouTube, it was the library. And I was super, super fixated with dragons. I mean, I still am because why not?
Nah.
And and it was a movie called Braveheart.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
This little
the
movie called Braveheart.
this little movie
Yeah.
called Braveheart, and it was I can't remember what his name is, because I know that the dragon's name is Draco, and he was like, oh yeah, name me after what my species is, thank you. But the knight was sitting there, and I think he had just hunted a deer or something that was there, and he was fixing his armor that he had, and I was like, you know what, I know of hunting, and like I think if you do it correctly, it can be very sustainable. Um, but I was like, for whatever reason, I never considered using the hide. Like the hide was usable to fix your armor. Now I'm intrigued. Um, and it started growing in that. But then, like I said, like at the time, there was no really community. And I also didn't have the support system around me to fully like go into that craft. Like it kind of felt like if I wanted to go into leatherwork, I'd be shamed.
Okay.
While it's like my community that I was in at the time, it was more of like a really heavy push into music. Which I stayed in because I'm a harpist and a bagpiper. But that the passion never really blossomed in there to be anything besides like I can just play the instruments. Um, but I always wanted to build something with my hands, something tangible. And it wasn't until the last year I was at that fair. There was a guy, he's actually here on Twitch. His name is Peeper46 or Peeper49. He is a leather worker. He had the first leather shop I actually saw. And when I mean like leather shop, like actual like leather tools for you to learn and buy to craft leather with. And I was like, I didn't know this was a thing. I thought this would have to be like an apprenticeship where I had to go beg, borrow, and like get on my hands and knees to this person and be like, please teach me, please teach me. And he's like, no, he's like, you could just learn. I was like, whoa, that's really cool. And that's when I was like, yes, I am gonna learn how to leather work. Because he let me make like a little bracelet that I still have to this day. I have no idea where it is. It's probably packed up, but it has like a little J and a little M because me and my husband just started dating, and I was like, I'm gonna make this cute little bracelet of us. Because that's me. Because I am a hopeless romantic. That is one thing that drew me to your guys' podcast is like the modern romantic. I was like, yes, I found my people because I am hopeless.
So are we.
So yeah, what I love about that is you found somebody that is not wanting to gatekeep information. They see the passion for it, and they're like, "Yes, let me invite you into this conversation."
Mm-hmm. He was cool. Unfortunately, I ended up after meeting him, I ended up leaving, and then ended up settling here in Kentucky where I am. And I had lost that community again, and it was just kind of like put on the back burner. But there was something in like my brain that was just like, no, don't give this up. In that 2 minutes it took me to make that bracelet, there's like that was the most fun I've ever had in a craft. And so I started following leather workers on Instagram and whatnot. And I actually found leather Rhinus Leatherworks before they got their stuff on Lucifer. Um,
Okay.
and I remember finding them on Instagram, and then their little Instagram, they had a little Etsy store. And I saved their Etsy account because I was like, well, I don't know how to make this yet, but I would love to buy some of their stuff. And I love what they're making. And then it was like 2, 3 weeks later, they were like, hey, we have an announcement to make. The season 5 finale Lucifer just came out and our armor's in it. And I was like, okay, yes, I think I am meant to be in a leather. And so I was like just following them and everything. It was until like New Year's. Elva made a post being like, what is your New Year's resolution? And normally I'm not someone who comments on people's posts. I'm very much so a lurker. Like I'll like a post, unless it's like someone I really, really know and can leave probably some unhinged comments that they fully understand. Like it's like full inside joke. Um, it's either it's an inside joke or it's nothing at all. There's no in between. Um, that I don't know, is for whatever reason I was like, you know what? Yeah, they're a leather worker. They might give me some tips of where I can go to learn more.
Mm-hmm.
And I just commented on their post. I was like, I would love to learn leather working. And the funniest part is later that day, I then get a ding on my phone that says Rhinus Leatherwork has privately DM'd you. And I was like, okay, interesting. And I went to accept it, went to go look at it. And I was like, hey, that's cool. You want to learn how to leather work? They're like, we're leather workers. We stream on Twitch, which, mind you, I didn't know Twitch existed.
Oh.
No idea. And so yeah, so he sent me like his information, and I was like, okay. And for whatever reason, I was just accepted it and I popped onto it, and they were actually streaming when I clicked on that message. And I came in, I was like, hi, I'm Kazairavin. I'm the one you privately DM'd. And Mark was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. He's like, he's he was like sitting there because normally he drives, but this time Elva, for whatever reason, was driving that day. So he was in charge of social media. Poor Mark is not that great at social media. And he's like, I thought I replied to the comment, but he's like, but as soon as I realized I privately DM'd you, he's like, they're gonna think I'm a creeper. I was like, nope. But for whatever reason, that moment where I like popped into their chat and I talked to them, I stuck around for I think now we're going on 3.5 years now. that I've followed them.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yep.
The one thing I liked about them, sorry, Trey. The one
Okay.
thing I liked about them and also you is that when you stream, when all of you stream, there's nothing proprietary. And that's something I had to learn when I got involved with like Comic Cons and stuff versus fashion design. Because fashion design, everything's a secret. I'm not giving away my secrets. That's how I make my money. So I showed up to this Comic Con and I'm the costume judge. And people are coming up to me like, "How'd you make that? How'd you make that?" And I was like, feels rude. It's not rude. In this community and how it should be. I mean, I understand you have a business, but the coolest part about you doing what you do and Mark and Elva doing what they do is that they are not afraid to share because nothing is going to be stolen and used. And sorry, my cat is sneezing.
Oh.
Are you okay? She's good. They are willing to share, and it's like, yeah, go, as Brooke Shaden would say it, go make $1 million. We will root for you. Like, go do your best. Here are the tools. Here's everything we know, and they encourage you, and that's the way it should be, and that's amazing.
Yeah, no, it's for me. I personally don't like gatekeeping. It's not a thing I do, and especially like when people begin to like they come onto my streams and they're like, and I've had it a couple times where I've had a few chatters that were like they would message me afterwards. They're like we were worried when we first came on you might be one of those pretentious streamers, but they're like, no, you were straight up an open book. Like you made fun of yourself. Like if chat was like, because my chat bullies me, and I would say I completely allow it, because half the time I deserve it.
Okay.
They were just like, you don't like you take yourself seriously, but you don't take yourself so seriously that you're not willing to take a joke.
Yeah. It's like all in good fun, not like true bullying.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, it's not true bullying. There are times where someone was like starting to hit a line and I've been like, hey, this is a safe place, but like that's starting to creep on the line where it's like it might be okay for me, but I have other chatters that it might not be okay for them. And we gotta remember boundaries, respect. And a lot of times the second I start making like not guidelines, boundaries, my chat will just like respect it immediately, and I'm like, yes, I love this community. But it's like I've had a couple people pop in and they're just like, I need a new like dyeing technique or dyeing for leather dyeing technique. And it's just like, hey, I'll let you know what I do, and I'm still learning, and there's been times that chat has seen me do some weird stuff, and I'm like, we're just flying by the seat of our pants right now because I'm in like full deep water. I can't see the bottom, so we're just gonna slap things on. It works.
I think there's an image that I saw, I think somewhere on TikTok, where it was one of those posts of like images that will change your perspective of things. And the image that really stuck to me was three different chords that they would intertwine together. And each of the chords was labeled as something to the effect of knowing what you're doing, improvisation, and then like solid don't know what's going on. And then it interwove, and when they were woven together, it was success. And so I think what you're saying there is like that is really what success is. You can think that you're knowing exactly what you're doing 100% of the time, but you're never really going to get that success until you're faced with doing something new and you have to figure it out in the moment. You've got to improvise.
Yeah. No, and that's exactly as you said. It's like I would say the times that I felt my leatherwork, like my skills itself in leatherwork grew, is when I was at the fair and I would have a patron or customer come in and be like, hey, I'm interested in like for this past week example, a guy came in, a patron came in, and he's like, I want a leather crown type, but not like what we think of like crowns of like modern day, like a little just headband crown, um, or I call like a sweat crown, as I like randomly said to someone, and they were like, "Yeah, I'm gonna keep that." Sweat crown, because it keeps the sweat off, come from in your eyebrows.
Mhm.
Um, and he was like, I don't see people um having them in stock here, or if it is like in stock, it's an actual like crown. And he's like, I don't want a crown, because I want this. And I looked over and I had some belt scraps from that I've excess belt scraps that I cut off from a belt from somebody, and I had some undyed veg tan leather. And I was like, give me 30 minutes and I will make something for you. And within that 30 minutes, I had to figure out how to shape this around his head. I had to figure out what type of style he wanted. And then from there, designing it so it's symmetrical and it doesn't look weird. And then basically trying to find how to pattern that without even patterning, honestly. And in 30 minutes, I whipped something up of just finding things and trying and cutting and scraping and cutting more things off. And by the time like he came back, I was like, this is what I got. And he's like, that's better than I could even picture. And I was like, yes, let's go. And he came back in again, and it was so sweet. Because he's like, how much do you want for it? And I'm like, I was like, it's scrap leather, so like $10. And so after that, he paid, he came back, and then it was like 30 minutes later, he's like, I thought about it. And he's like, no, I don't accept that. And then he like slaps down more money. And I'm like, you don't need to do that. And he's like, I don't want to hear it. No, no, no. And that's been like my biggest moments where I'm like, I'm learning. It's not them coming back. I mean, it's nice, but they don't need to. um it's those moments where I'll have patrons, they'll challenge me. Um and as I've been growing, I've kind of been thinking about trying to see how to turn that into like a little bit of like a business, in a sense of like a little, I don't want to say side hustle, but like at fair, it's like challenge the leather worker, make a piece that, within like these categories that will take 30 minutes and challenge us of what you want. Because I've had to sit there and think of all the skills I've learned of like dyeing techniques, of how to get like a cool streaky, one of the examples is this little scissor holder that I have that I made. And there's complexity with the dye.
Okay.
I had to quickly learn how to like, in certain areas it be really really light, but in other areas be really really dark without it looking splotchy, that it just blends and just it looks like the leather itself is alive.
Oh.
um and it's in those moments that it's like I'm being pushed. I have no idea what I'm doing. I have a vague idea of like the skills I do know, but past that, I'm like, we're balling, and if they like it, they like it. And right now, it's been a success that so far everyone has liked the pieces that they're like, I'm challenging you this, or it's like, can you make this little sheath holder in like 25 minutes? And I'm like, well, I got the leather, I got the time, nobody's coming in, sure.
That okay, that is incredible that one, you're able to manifest that in such a short amount of time, but it speaks to your creativity, and then it also speaks to your ability to work under pressure. There are not many people I know that could do that, um, all of that, and then truly create something as unique as what you described. where do you think that ability to kind of work under pressure comes from?
Um, trauma.
I think that's the
I
most
felt
honest
really
answer.
awful laughing at that.
I'm so sorry. But that one that was unexpected too. I think that's an incredibly honest answer.
Super
Um,
raw. Yeah.
Yep. I like, as I said, like, I don't gatekeep. I'm an open book. Like, I run the philosophy of like, if everyone knows everything about me, nobody can use anything against me. Because it's like, if I'm being a grump and people know I'm a grump, and then someone's like, oh well, they're a grump trying to start drama, everyone's like, okay, yes, we know. Like, I run on that philosophy. Um, but yeah, trauma. No, I'd say a lot of that stems from the two sports I mostly played when I was young. One being a gymnast, like a high level performing gymnast, where if I remember correctly, I've had performed one of the meets I was at, it was streamed live nationwide. Um, but
Wow.
also it was like, for me, at several of those meets, I had like Olympic coaches watching to see if they want to bring you onto their team, because my goal was the Olympics.
Wow.
And I almost made it, but sadly 2 years before the 2012 Olympics, I ended up getting diagnosed with from basically the tip of my skull to, or where my spine, where your spine meets your skull, from that all the way down to my tailbone, I had stress fractures just all up and down. And my L3 and my L5 were completely my little vertebrae are completely snapped off. Yeah, when I was in so much pain that I still competed for 3 weeks in just debilitating pain, where I was taking a lot of Tylenol and ibuprofen, like to the point where I keeping it not traumatic, to a point where it was like, it was very dangerous.
Yeah,
A
it
very
sounds
dangerous level.
dangerous. This is,
Um,
I didn't even know that was a thing.
yeah, it was.
Wow.
I definitely was taking about 14 to 16 Tylenol pills a day
Cause
to,
Yeah, yeah.
to try even like get a little bit of that pain to go away.
Wow.
Um,
oh,
yeah, I now have this really bad habit where it's like, if my body gets in pain, I'll need to sleep it off. I don't take meds for it. I just sleep it off. And when my doctor was like, no, stop doing that. That's not healthy. I was like,
Really?
okay, I'll try. Yeah, it's something about, it's like a trauma response or something.
Hmm.
While it's like my body is resting and it does aid, it also is, my body is just numbing the pain. If it's something serious, it just numbs it, and I wake up and I still go. I've still done damage. I'm just no longer
Hmm.
like actually aiding myself. My body just says, okay, we're in pain. We're going to just ignore those receptors now. Like, we fall asleep, ignore those receptors. So when I wake up, I'm still in pain, but it's just normal. My brain goes,
Oh.
this is normal now. And I move on with my life. And they were like, no, stop that.
Like, you
Stop
should
that.
come in and see a doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that was gymnastics. Yeah, when I finally, at like the 3 week mark, like, I could not get out of bed anymore. So I finally went to like the emergency room. They did an MRI on me, and or it was like CAT scan. It was one of those weird ones where they just stick you in a machine, and then yeah, they stick you in a machine. So they do, you go in once, and then when you come back out, you have to drink this green radioactive sludge.
mm-hmm.
Ooh.
And yep.
Fun.
And yeah, so you have to be alone in this contained room. You have to drink it, wait like 30, 45 minutes so it like gets into your body and goes where it needs to go, because scientists have figured out how to make that happen. And then people in hazmat suits will literally come get you, put you into this sterilized other machine, stick you in it, and then that radioactive stuff will light up any bone damage that you have. And the guy, so after all that happened, and I came back after like so many days, and they read it, the person was like, yeah, you have a note in your like medical stuff from the person that read your stuff. And he's like, I've never seen someone's spine light up like a Christmas tree.
Wow.
Yeah, he's like the spine was so lit up. He's like, I thought the entire whole thing was shattered. I was like, no, it's just hairline fractures. That it was just so many of them. But due to my trauma from gymnastics, and the constant pressure of just being perfect on all the apparatus every single day, I just as soon as pressure just hits me, it's like I level out, and it's like my anxiety goes away. It's just like smooth brain. It's like I honestly relate it to like that calm before the storm, but the storm never comes. It's just glassy, and I process and I go. Which I work for one of my friends. She's a leather worker, and I help her because she's like, I really need the help. And I'm like, I'm absolutely willing to help. Last year was her first vending time, and her tent started collapsing. Like there was so much chaos happening, and we were about to open, and like that whole thing just hit me where I'm like, smooth seas. And I just went to work, and I fixed the tent, and I got everything set up. And she's like, there was so much chaos. How did you process all of that? And I was like, I probably didn't. I just went full autopilot, which unfortunately dubbed me the name Chaos Eater.
What a name.
Yo, so anytime someone at fair now gets like there's chaos happening and they're like out of control, I get sent over there, and I'm just like, guys, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but it works. And in a way, I enjoy it because I love helping people. And so when someone's like kind of in the sense losing their mind, I'm like, I'm here. We're okay. You'll be open in 10 minutes, and this will never have happened. And we roll with it. And they're just like, oh my gosh, I love you so much. I'm like, it's fine. And I walk out, and I'm like, what did I just do? Just blank.
Well, I was gonna ask, like, how do you balance that? And it sounds like, from what you described, the balance of that response is your love of helping people. So you're using, the goal is to help somebody. And that's kind of what is helping propel you through those types of situations, whether it's you're helping your customers by crafting something and coming up with something, but you're also helping others whenever you're in that particular situation. And
Yeah.
I hope that that truly does bring you balance. And if it doesn't, the next time I see you, I will give you a hug, and I will go put you in your own corner and just say, just stay here for a second, please.
I mean, putting me in my own corner might make me spaz out a little bit. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, why am I still? Like,
I'll give you fidget toys. It's fine.
There you go. Yeah. And just give me a little piece of leather. Be like, tool something for me, and I'd be like, okay.
That
Just
I can
put her
do.
in the groove,
Yep.
and then
Right?
she'll be fine.
Yeah.
Well, you've talked about how the leather community in particular doesn't gatekeep, and a lot of people have come out of the, for lack of a better term, woodwork, in order to give advice, be there, be supportive. But I'm curious, for those who are just starting out getting into leather, what is some advice that you would give to like brand spanking new people?
Brand,
Oh,
brand, brand,
yes.
brand.
Brand,
I
brand,
love
brand, brand, brand.
I love this question. I get it a lot when I'm at fair because a lot of people are wanting to get into it, and I say do do what you're interested in. It might be hard, it might be difficult, but you will get a lot more satisfaction, and also you will learn a lot about yourself um, doing a project that you're really interested in. So for me, it's a lot of people start off doing like little wallets or keychains. My first project was an armor piece. And I learned really quickly I was not great at tracing out a pattern onto leather. I would move it a lot. Um, so I learned really quickly that I had to figure out how to tape it down and then work my way about that. Um, and other skills where it's like I didn't quite know how to bevel edges, make it look from like a raw edge to a like smooth, like rounded edge. Where I learned how to like water burnish, gum tar burnish, tokonol burnish. Like I learned so much. But it really pushed my skills about like how much like I physically could take doing the craft in a day. Because I know there's several people where they can knit all day long, they could do it in their sleep. um but doing the project I really loved, I learned that even when I do hyper fixate, when my body says, hey, we're done, I take a step back and I'm like, cool, yeah, we're done, and I'm fine. But then once I was done with it, I had so much like gratification and just was so happy that I now had an armor piece that I made. I bumbled my way through it. Like I was terrible at punching holes. Which is like it's over there in the corner right now. There's actually several sections in the stitching. Oh, hi puppy. There's a little puppy laying down on the floor. Um, I'd show you guys, but like I punched a hole too close to another one, so when I stitched it up, the string actually cut the tiny little piece of leather that was between those two holes, and the string became wonky and it just kind of pooches just a little weirdly now. Um, and it's the not straight, it's not right, it just kind of squiggles like that. But I'm so proud of that piece. It's like my favorite piece that I have because I'm so proud of it. And I've asked the other workers, I'm like, do you remember what your first piece is? And they're like, no, it's probably a wallet. I can't remember it. And so it's like I get patrons that are like, well, why do you say make the piece that we want? And I was like, because you'll remember it. And that's the part about the craft that I think a lot of people have forgotten, where it's like they started learning it to make a business, where it's like if you're doing this as a hobby, make the pieces you want. And when you get to a point where you don't know what you need to do, reach out to us. We'll help you. We'll teach you so that you can keep progressing and learning and keep building this piece you will treasure. Because in the end of the day, it doesn't matter if we like it. It matters if you like it, you want to wear it, and you want to show it off. Like it's your skills. And so that's what I tell everybody. And I have to tell them, I was like, leave perfection out the door. Like, because the small mistakes make the piece. Because you're not a machine, and even machines aren't perfect. But when you're handcrafting something, you are literally putting, or I should say, I say, every piece I make, I'm putting a piece of me, an essence of myself into it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't become it until I'm making mistakes. Those little chips, those little like on my Tiamat bracers, from a distance, like unless you're really really close, the white the scale that's I've painted white, it actually has blue smudged into it because when during the dyeing process, I didn't wait long enough and I stacked my blue scale on top of it, and part of it rubbed off on the white scale.
Oh.
And yeah, and but now it's like at first I was like, oh man, now I have to like fix that. But then I was like, no, actually I don't have to fix that because why wouldn't, a multicolored dragon, like why would it be perfectly, just one color if it has other colors? There might be some of those colors in its scales elsewhere. So I'm just gonna leave that part blue. It gives it character. It gives it just the thing. Can't think of the word, but like you just look at it and you're like, that's handmade. Like it's too imperfect, but that makes it perfect. And I love it. I love it so much. And like a lot of my pieces, like my Tiamat armor, like the new one that I've built, I accidentally was playing around and I actually with my scalpel, and I didn't know it was like right next to me, and I like went to like do something and I cut the leather like a big old groove in it, the side of it, and I was like,
I thought you were about to say that you cut yourself, and I was like
I've done
bracing
that.
for that.
I've done that.
Like there's this scalpel, and I just ran my hand across. Like,
oh no, that was last year when I tried to cut my middle finger off. I had a new knife, and it was someone was like, "Hey, can you? I just bought this axe. I want to wear it, but I have to like piece tie it, and means I need a cover for the axe part. I don't want to be walking around with cardboard on it. Can you make me a quick little thing?" I was like, "Cool, yeah, leave that with me for 30 minutes." I quickly designed a quick sketch, and I had it as I was trying to get the last like detailed cut before I'd stitch it. My knife, for whatever reason, was being kind of a butt where I was like, man, I'm gonna have to go sharpen this. And I like cursed at it, or I said something like, you're being useless. And out of nowhere, it turned into the sharpest thing in the world. And it just went glided right through the leather like butter. And it wasn't like just simple, like really thin leather. No, it was like 8-10 ounce leather. It was thick and just slipped through it like butter. And I like cut myself straight to the bone on my finger. And I was like looking at it. It's just like blood's pouring down. And I was like, oh, okay. Hey, boss, I got to go to first aid. And she was like, please?
There's a very lovely story that will be etched into my brain of I used to play tennis in high school, and for a match that we got brand new canisters of tennis balls. We had never had that done before.
Oh, I know this story.
And I was a cocky little you-know-what on the tennis court, and I was really feeling it one day. And my opponent was being a you-know-what. So I popped the top, the plastic top off. I went to go grab the little tab to like pull back on it, and I was just feeling and just rip all across my middle finger down to right about there was just this huge gash. And I didn't notice it until I went to go grab a tennis ball and like go to serve. And I looked down and my like just blood is just like all down my hand. And I'm like, we gotta pause. We gotta pause this because I need to go. So yeah. So cleaned that up, came back, and finished my tennis match with a lovely bandaged arm and hand.
Oh, I love that. Nice. It's those moments where you're like, I'm feeling my oats, and then you just have to have that little like, the universe just like humble yourself.
Yeah, thanks universe. Thanks universe.
Take a step back.
Let's not. But I really enjoy that you said be okay with mistakes because mistakes are what give things character.
Mm-hmm.
It's that perfection. You're achieving excellence, not perfection. And I love that you said it because it puts your personal stamp on things. Yes, and to the truth found, I did not need stitches, very thankfully. So was my mother, very thankful. um, so the last question I have, cause you have been an incredible guest today. We thank you so much. It is such a pleasure to have you on here. And we want to make sure that our listening audience can come find you. They can be able to also support you. So, where can our
Mhm.
listening audience stay in touch with you, watch you stream? Um, what's the best place to keep in touch?
Yeah, right now, really the two places that you'll find me mostly, if I actually remember to stay on top of myself, because I am terrible with social media, is Instagram, which is Kazraven,
Which is
and
Kazairavin for anybody who doesn't know how to spell it.
yup,
Kazairavin.
yup, and um, and yeah, so I'm usually posting there. If you scroll down a little ways, you'll see where like I started like my horse armor projects, which that unfortunately has been like pushed to the side, which is really sad because I see them. I have like 6 pieces, 6 armor sets that are like in pieces. They just need to be assembled, and I'm like, they're just sitting there, and they're like, love me," and I'm like, No,
We're
no,
Avengers. Assemble us.
exactly. And but yeah, I mostly post a lot of just my going about like what I'm doing, what I'm making. And that's where it's like a lot of people are like, we see your things, but like, do you have a business? I'm like, yes and no. I do. My business is trading. I love trading. So a lot of the times you see me like posting stuff of like, this is going to this person. I've done a trade.
Okay.
Um and but yeah, I'm on Instagram and then on Twitch, which would be Kazraven and then underscore of underscore WH, which WH means wyvern hide, and that will be when I actually get off my lazy bum and finish filing the paperworks for my little LLC for my business. I'll be under wyvern hide,
Cool.
which is funny because originally I switched from Kazraven to Wyvernhide on Twitch, and I caused an absolute ruckus in the community. They were like, "No, you cannot. We cannot see you in our chat for like the next like 6 weeks or however long it takes till you can get your name back." And I was like, "Okay." So so I was literally yelled at by like 40 people, like 40 streamers being like, "No, we will refuse to ever acknowledge you as Wyvern High. You are Kaz
What?
Raven." Well, because I had been Kaz Raven for over like 3 years at that point. They were
Okay.
like, "No, that you cannot change it now." Um,
I'd be like, and now we're just the Trey and Emily podcast.
you know, and
No.
it's so funny. That's the same that's happened at fair. I wear jingle bells. Literally, I wear bells on my feet.
Cute.
That's
Because that's how patrons and other vendors find me if I'm walking about. My boss like kicks me out of the tent. She's like, "We're not busy. Go, get out of here. Go have fun." And people want to find me. They will literally listen to listen for bells because I apparently have a very very specific walk, and they're like, "Oh,
Oh.
Kaz is that way." And they'll literally find me like that. And I'm like, I'm walking in the middle of just a crowd, and they're like, "Kaz, hey, you're here." And I was like, "How'd you find me?" And they're like, "Your bells." And I'm like, "Oh." But yeah, I took them off this weekend, and that also caused an uproar of a lot of the vendors and patrons were like, "We can't find you." And I'm like, I will put the bells back
It's like your
on.
cat bell.
Yeah.
that that I I love that. I've got a friend who wears, for a different reason, will wear an ankle bracelet with some like bells on it. I do not remember the significance, and I'm very sorry that I cannot provide that significance. Um, but all I have to do when I'm in the building with her is listen for those bells, and I'm like,
Hmm.
she is 36 feet to the right. Okay, going this way.
Yep.
And
Fascinating. I
Yep.
knew a knight out at the Renaissance Festival um that wore spurs on his boots, and you could hear those footsteps because you'd hear like the clomping of the boots, but you'd hear the little I
Like
can't
cha-chink,
the
cha-chink,
little spur
cha-chink.
sound. Yes, yeah. If you're familiar with it, you know what it is. But yeah, very similar and interesting. I think I'm gonna opt for being a little bit more ninja and
mhm,
silent myself.
same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, for one of my friends who was one of the ones who yelled at me, they're like, "No, your bells bring me happiness," because they're a very specific bell. They look like little acorns, so they don't sound like a typical bell. But they're still a bell. But a lot of them, because I started asking, I was like, "Why do you guys want me to wear these bells? Are you okay? Is the trauma talking?" And they're like, no, you've Pavloved us, where it's like we hear those bells, we know you're coming, and then we get happy. And I was like, well, I didn't mean that. I'm sorry.
Well, now you've conditioned them, and now
Yep,
you have to continue wearing them.
I do.
You've trained
It's
Well,
them.
I have. I'm over here. I'm like, I'm training everything else. Where's my crows? Can I please have a flock of crows just suddenly like
Right?
be in my yard so I can train them? Because you know how much fun I would have just having like a semi domesticated or slash pet crow, but it's not really my pet crow, just bring me things unhinged.
oh,
That
It'd
would
be
be awesome.
wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to be sitting in my tower and have my crow bring me money, please.
Hmm.
Just
Just a little
money.
bit, just money. That's all I ask. Um, Cause this has been great. Thank you so much for spending time with us today and sharing
Yeah.
your love of the Renaissance of leather, of just life in general. So thank you so much for being on today.
Absolutely. I greatly appreciate you guys asking. I know you asked before and like I ran away. I was like, no, I'm too scared. And then Emily's like, hey, so we would like to have you on. And I was like, I was gonna like tempt to like sit there and be like, maybe another time, but I was like, no, I think at this point Emily would probably be like, no, we're gonna expect you. And so I was like, okay, I can do it. I was like, it's like while I'm like terrified, but at the same time, it's like I've streamed my chat has literally watched me fall on my face. Like it's fine. Like I don't think I could be as like terrible as I normally am. Like I think I could keep myself in a little bit of check because
That and
right
like
now,
you
like
know us, so
Yeah.
yeah,
it's not like we're just strangers trying to,
like
you know,
your first Rhinus be like, first strangers we
yeah,
have.
blind call. Right.
Line calling,
But
and
this was so nice.
it was.
No,
Uh,
I love you guys, and that's why I stick around. In the times that like I've missed some podcasts, like I will literally get sad. I'm like, I'll forget that it's Monday, and I'm like headed to bed, and I'll look at my phone, and it's like notification, the mod rom, Modern Romantic went live, and I was like, oh hey, and it was like stream ended like 30 minutes ago, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go cry myself to sleep.
There have been a few times when I've messaged Josh and been like, or the group of us, and been like, Kaz should be here right now because this is a great guest and this is something that you would totally love. And then,
No.
and then like, how do we? I think I've messaged you once or twice, like, you have to tune in right now.
I know. Usually, I'm like, oh my god. I'm like, I forgot it's Monday. I'm like, I pop right on in. But I say, like, man,
I'm like,
I
this is
just,
so presumptuous of me to just be like, you have to be here because you're missing it.
I know it's like, cause you have to. It's like, have I conditioned you guys too?
Maybe that's it.
From my perspective, I truly think it's just that we've started to learn like what we think will interest some of our fans, and then we're like, they need to be here. They
You
need to
need to
be
be
here.
here.
Everybody needs to be here.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
a family.
we're growing our family one follower at a time, and it's lovely. Um, we have a nice little family here at the Modern Romantic.
We do.
Uh,
I adore you guys so much. But yeah,
Oh,
no,
we do too.
I was like, yeah, when I got that message from Emily, I was like, yeah, it's time. I need to not be a chicken. Let's go. Okay.
And here you are. You did
I,
it.
I am. I did it.
you
Yay.
did it!
Yay.
And
Oh, we
see,
should do this.
what? Oh, yeah, yay!
Can we do it? Oh, look at
Oh,
you.
oh,
Oh,
okay,
wait,
hold on.
here.
Okay, okay.
I have to curve
Hey.
better. There we go.
Yay!
Yes. That's so
What
perfect.
was it? Hashtag nacho of my life.
That's right.
Yes. Oh, okay. Now that is a deep cut. For those who are
It is.
listening, please go back and listen to that episode with James Navy. You will have to go back to, I think it's season one of our episodes to go listen to that. But Nacho of our life is worth him telling it. So please go back and listen to that. Now, for sake of time, we are going to have to end the podcast here. So for our outro, I just want to say this episode, along with probably every other episode, will be dedicated to Joe Capone, our moderator, fellow comedian, passionate encourager, and greatly missed friend. Cheers, Joe Capone. You can find us on social media under Modern Romantic. Please follow us there for updates and announcements as to what is coming next. We also have a Patreon. You can find different tier subscriptions for what you would, if you are able to contribute to that. We have different tiers. You can get exclusive access to behind the scenes content at all levels. Please see the Modern Romantic on Patreon for additional details. Thanks everybody for tuning in. And remember, mistakes are beautiful, and sewing them into whatever project you're doing just sows a little bit of you.